Welcome in, everybody. It's Blake Ruffino with our Are You Serious Sports. Glad that you can be here and joining us. Today, we're back at Service Hawk Digital Media, where they soar above the competition. Today, we're going to be talking about recruiting. Now, I know that you're probably wondering what all is going on in recruiting now that Cade Phillips, the five-star DB out of the state of Texas, is now flipped. And with signing day tomorrow, what things look like. And then when we go into the transfer portal with LSU this offseason, how are things going to unfold? So if you're a massive fan of recruiting, this is the show for you. If you're a massive fan of what goes on in the transfer portal, this probably is going to be the show for you. So we're going to break down the decommitment and flip from Cade Phillips, a five-star DB from Texas. We're also going to talk about what's the reality of where LSU sits at the current moment, and what do you need to do to change the perception that is surrounding you at the current moment. Today's show is brought to you by our good friends over at C&D Plumbing. Do you have plumbing problems? They're serving the river region with fast and reliable residential and commercial services. C&D has earned their reputation for quality and honesty. When you need a plumber, you can count on. You got to call our friends over at C&D Plumbing. 985-304-8556. That's 985-304-8556. Where their problem is your priority, or where your problem is our priority. I completely messed it up. So, first new time on a live read. I apologize to C&D. We might need to do that again, but go over to C&D Plumbing. I appreciate them being a part of what we're doing here over at Service Hawk Digital Media, where you guys need to go over if you own a business, run a business. The ladies are in here grinding. I see Allie over here grinding. She's getting blushed. Look at her being blushed. The ladies are in here grinding, and they're working hard along with our good friends Lee and Justin. So let's get to it here. So Cade Phillips, the five-star defensive back, just decommitted or flipped his commitment from LSU to Texas. The one-time Texas commit and LSU commit has now found his way back into the Longhorn fold here. And listen, I know that this is a massive blow for LSU. It's a massive blow for Corey Raymond. It's a massive blow for LSU DC Blake Baker. But look, man, we continue to have these same exact conversations when it comes to these high-profile recruits in high school or in the portal on why you're missing on them. Look, whether it be last offseason, whether it be right now, regardless, the game of college football, the game of college athletics as a whole has changed from the very beginning to where it is now. Guys, it is about money. And nothing is ever going to be finalized. No kid is shutting down his recruitment, regardless of what he tells you on social media, until that pen hits paper. And even with that, signing day isn't even a big deal anymore, because if you remember, it was announced by the NCAA that, well, it doesn't necessarily matter anymore, that because you can just enter the portal and you can transfer as many times as you want. So it never really truly matters till you sign that binding contract and agreement, when even then it doesn't matter. But let's talk about Cade Phillips, and let's talk about three main points here about recruiting. So you have Cade Phillips, who was one of the best players in your class. You were a top 3 recruiting class. Then after Bryce Underwood decommitted, you fell to 6, and now you're hovering around being in the top 10. So being at the top, now hovering around 10 is not where we thought 2 weeks ago, even with the disappointing aspect of Bryce Underwood flipping, that you would be. I can't emphasize this enough, that you can like it, love it, or hate it. The game of recruiting is coming down to one thing and one thing only. It's what the world, before college football was ever created, it's what the world and countries have fought over: money. It comes down to money. So whether you like it or not, whether you want to be a part of NIL or not, whether you think players in college should be paid or not, it doesn't matter about my opinion or your opinion. If you're not going to pay players to come to LSU and pay what the market value is set for these guys, they're not going to come here. Now, let me tell you what's going to happen here. People are going to tell you that Cade Phillips had a matching offer from LSU. And let me just tell you the truth. It's hard to believe at the current moment. It's hard to believe at the current moment because every single time that you get in these quote unquote bidding wars, you continue to lose. And for what it's worth, the perception around LSU at the current moment is that you can bring in a kid that can fall in love with this place, that can love what everything that Brian Kelly is building. But when business comes down to business, you're losing. And that, as Stone Cold Steve Austin said in the mid to late 90s, because Stone Cold said so, and that's the bottom line. Literally and figuratively. So until Bayou Traditions is doing some of the things that Ohio State and Ole Miss and what some of the teams like Texas and Texas A&M, who both flipped 5-star recruits today. Florida, guys, Florida has never given up on trying to be great. Are we desperate enough as a fan base, as a coaching staff, as an athletic department? Are we desperate enough to want to be great? Are we taking every single measure that it takes to be great? You know, there's nothing illegal or wrong that if a head coach goes out there and sends a tweet out about their collective, there's nothing wrong about that. They need to rally the troops. You know, LSU brags about having 1 million followers on social media platforms like Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. It's hard for me to believe that you can't get 20% of that, 15% of that, 10% of that to donate to a collective. Now, I know what a lot of you say. I've been in this situation with you before. The situation is Blake, either number one, I don't want to pay, I don't have the resources, and I'm not asking those folks. But what I am asking is that you are being left behind when you get to a place where when it's the day before early national signing day and a kid flips, you're standing there at the altar and your bride is not there. Which, funny story, a lot of you know this, that when I got married, nobody went and got my wife, and I was just sitting up at the altar for 5 minutes, and I panicked and started hyperventilating. Maybe I haven't told you that story, but it's the truth. Just a fast forward so my wife doesn't stab me in the neck. She did ultimately come down the aisle when somebody went and told her it's time. But you're getting left at the aisle. The game is about money. So whether you like it, love it, or hate it, it's going to continue to be about money. And until you do something about it, these kinds of things are going to continue to happen. You know, another question that I have here is, how many more PR hits are you going to take? You know, there comes a part in time where you may not agree with the value number that some of these guys in high school are getting paid. It's the market. It 1,000% is the market. So I know that Brian Kelly, and we'll shift into the portal in just a second. And I know that there's a plan that they have in place. But the bottom line is, man, from whether it be December portal haul, whether it be December high school recruiting of last year, whether it be spring portal haul when you were going after defensive tackles, and then BK ran out there and said, and I quote, "We're not in the business of buying players." Well, if you're not in the business of buying players like other teams, you're going to be behind. Those are his words. Then he comes out and he says, well, we're going to be very aggressive in the portal, insinuating that they're going to go out there and pay players. Well, I mean, guys, every time that I feel like that we talk about recruiting, it's PR hit after PR hit after PR hit. Now, PR hits don't matter if you're out there winning football games. It simply doesn't matter. But from a fan base and a morale standpoint, when you lose Bryce Underwood, when you lose DeCorian Moore, when you lose Cade Phillips, guys, you lost 3 of the 4 top recruits in your class. That's what people talk about when they say that you are taking massive PR hits, and they're not wrong. You know, this place, LSU, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, it's a proud place. It's a place where people want to have great morale. And I know that they will rally behind LSU. I've seen them do it. I saw them do it in baseball. I saw some of the bigger boosters when Jay Johnson needed to go get a guy like Tommy White that they didn't blink an eye. And we've had those conversations before. You have a head coach in baseball that's out there grinding every single week that, man, I'm just simply not going to lose a kid to another team because of money. And when the situations occur and when things like that happen, then so be it. But he's out there grinding in the portal. He's getting two of the best high school prospects who in a normal age in William Schmidt and Derek Curiel. Guys, those guys should have been draft picks. But Jay Johnson's doing what he needs to do. He's going up against Major League Baseball organizations and bringing those kids in here. So you can tell me that you don't have the money. You can tell me that you don't want to spend. You can tell me all of these different things. But I see an organization and I see Jay Johnson not taking those PR hits like you do. Which brings me to my next point here. Brian Kelly a week ago, or 2 weeks ago, for whatever it's worth, came out and said in a press conference that this isn't about money. And that's basically what he said when it came to, I mean, he didn't say those exact words. It's the way that I intended it. So maybe I'm wrong there. Maybe I am. But Brian Kelly 2 weeks ago came out and said that we're going to be very aggressive in the portal. Now, there are some kids in the portal, like Jakeem Jackson, the DB that just went in for Florida, that was the number 3 corner last year, who is unproven. There are going to be other guys that enter the transfer portal. And let me just tell you this. If you are not willing to spend what everybody else is spending to bring difference makers in to your program, and a year from now, after Thanksgiving, after you've eaten all the cornbread dressing that you could have, all the turkey and gravy and rice and gravy, and if you're like my family, one thing that I do every Thanksgiving is we eat deer sausage, backstrap. All of you have your things. You're going to be sitting here after Thanksgiving, sitting at the dinner table with your family asking, how did we get here again? How are we still in this same exact predicament and situation? Guys, you need safety help. If I'm LSU, I'm attacking every safety that enters the portal. I am breaking down their film. I'm finding out about them as a player. You need interior defensive linemen. I'm watching every single one of the films that come out on every defensive tackle that goes into the portal. Edge rusher. You need linebacker help. I don't think that you have a true guy in the middle. Regardless if Whit Weeks is going to be good, he's not a true middle linebacker. He's a weak side linebacker. What if Harold Perkins does return? He's not that either. If you want to go with a star role, I don't know if you have a guy that can play that position that's going to be good enough, because I keep hearing from everybody that Major Burns and Sage Ryan can't play. But I look at Brian Kelly and say, well, there was a situation last week where he played 2 true freshmen on the D-line and a redshirted freshman. And you had Dylan Carpenter, Ahmad Bro, and Don McKinley. And Don McKinley got 2 sacks, and that's great. But it's not like he's not playing true freshman. So what is it about the safety room? What is it about the linebacker room, which you were playing another true safety? There were instances last week versus Oklahoma that in your front 7, you had 4 freshmen that were playing. Guys, you need depth. You need difference makers. You don't have them right now on defense. You do not. Now you're bringing, hopefully, in a guy like DJ Pickett who can change some things for you. But he's not enough. So every single player that goes into the portal, I'm finding out their number. I am finding out if they have the quality to come into Baton Rouge, to come into LSU and play here. I know a lot of you are going to disagree with my thoughts on what you got to do in the portal. Guys, you got to kill it in the portal. You probably, guys, not having a top 3 class in the portal is going to come back and bite you. And you better hit on those evaluations. You better hit on every one of them. 2 years ago, you've drastically missed a DB. You brought in Dever Harris, not a good player. You brought in Deuce Chestnut. Did I just do the Price is Right jingle when they get something wrong? But you missed. You missed. You need a quarterback. And I'm not saying that you need a quarterback that can start above Garrett Nussmeier, but are you going to be in a situation next year, God forbid, knock on wood, if he comes back, if he gets hurt again like he did in the Oklahoma game, are you going to run things with A.J. Swan? Are you going to run things with Colin Hurley? That's where you think you are. I think Colin Hurley could wind up being a good player. I don't know how much of a drastic leap he can make from what I saw him last year. We're going to probably see that in bowl practice. I'm very excited to see that. Very, very excited to see any kind of leaps that Colin Hurley has made. You need a running back. You need a guy, because this is what your running back room is more than likely going to look like next year. It looks like you're not going to play Caleb Jackson. You'll have 3 running backs that are under 210 pounds, and Caden Durham, who I think is a dude, Harlem Berry, JT Lindsey. What happens with Trey Holly, I have no clue. But you need a guy that can go out there and put his head down and get you 4 yards, like what South Carolina did in bringing in Rocket Sanders. You got to go get him. Do you have a difference maker on the outside at wide receiver? Is CJ Daniels going to return? What are you going to do at guard? Now, I do think that you are in a good position for Solomon Thomas. We'll see how that goes. But we're 24 hours out of that even happening, and God knows that anything can happen because money talks and bullshit walks. See, Allie, I knew I was going to need you for the bullshit. But money talks and bullshit walks. So there's no telling what's going to happen here. I know you think that I am negative. I have gotten more comments in our YouTube channel. I've gotten more comments on our Facebook. I've gotten more comments on Instagram. And God forbid, I don't even go on TikTok anymore because you guys make fun of me all the time, and I just don't want to be in that situation. Which I love all you people on TikTok, but you're mean. It's like a sports version of Mean Girls. Like, is that guy really wearing a sweatshirt? Yeah, I'm wearing a sweatshirt. You're not here to look at my looks. I hope you're not. We're here to talk about sports. You may think that I am being negative and I think the program is going under. That's not what I'm trying to do. But what I am trying to say is, if you don't start correcting some of these things, the snowball continues to roll down the hill. You know, there's an old saying in baseball, when you give up a lot of runs in one inning, it's called stop the bleeding. And if you can't stop that snowball effect, if you can't stop the bleeding, if you can't continue, or if you allow to continue for these situations to happen in recruiting, you are not going to win. Let's talk about this. I brought up a baseball analogy there, and I brought up a baseball analogy earlier about Jay Johnson. The last time that you won a national title in any sport, gymnastics, baseball, women's basketball, you had stars. You had difference makers. And the teams and the programs, Oregon, Texas, LSU in baseball, what do they all have in common? They all recruit at a high level. because when it's 3rd and inches or when it's a full count in the bottom of the 9th with the game on the line and Tommy Tanks is up, you have no care in the world of the $1 million+ that you spent on that kid when he sends you to a College World Series final, or when you have Paul Skeens, who might be the most generational pitcher that we've ever had come through this place, or when Angel Reese is dribbling down the lane and she hits a spin move, finger roll, bang, natty, over. Or when you bring in a guy like Jaden Daniels, who covered up so many multitudes of your sins. Guys, you got to have different guys, when you call plays in football, I can call inside zone, outside zone, quick slant, it doesn't matter. If you don't have difference makers, the play calls don't matter. They don't matter. You can scheme up all you want to, but if you don't have guys out there executing and guys that can go out there and out execute, you're going to be in a bad spot. So say I'm being negative, but that's the reality of what you sent in. Speaking of reality, yes, I'm sorry if you can hear my phone. It is blowing up. Well, we're technically taping this as soon as Cade Phillips has entered the transfer or has flipped his commitment. So I get what you're saying. I know that you're mad. I'm going to try to put my phone on silent here so you guys don't keep hearing the Let's talk about reality at the moment before we wrap it up here. And before we do that, let me do this. I got to remind you guys about our good friends over at C&D Plumbing, where they're serving their river regions with fast, reliable residential and commercial service. C&D has earned their reputation for quality and honesty. When you need a plumber, you can count on. You got to call our good friends over at C&D Plumbing, 985-304-8556. That's 985-304-8556. 985-304-8556, where your problem is their priority. So let's wrap it up here. Let's talk about reality. Reality is that if we don't start seeing these two things happening, nothing's going to change. You got to get and be and have a more organized system in NIL. Now, when NIL was first enacted, I did not think that you were behind because of some of the things that you were doing in baseball, some of the things that you did do in football. But now, guys, the Bayou tradition should not be an issue. And if you don't know what Bayou tradition is, it's LSU's NIL collective. I don't think that it's being run in an effective way. I think Austin Thomas has done as much as he can, but I think that he's had to overcome hurdles that he did not anticipate. You know, your head coach is not out there saying that we need difference makers, and I don't know if we have people out there raising money for football the way that we need to. Now, there's a way that you can prove me wrong, and I hope that I am wrong. The way that I can be proven wrong here is if you go into the portal and you just start snapping necks and cashing checks like it's the Catalina wine mixer. A lot of you who've watched the Step Brothers will know exactly what I'm saying here. But the reality of where you're at in the current moment of things, you are behind. You will not get where you want to go unless you have some transcendent type of things that happen until you start spending money. Now, here's what's going to happen. And I want to put this in there because I know what's going to happen after we publish this. Well, Blake, LSU did match. Well, Blake, LSU did do this. They did do that. I don't believe you anymore. I don't believe it. Because at some point, there's going to come a time where you got to win one of these money wars. Are you willing to do it? Jakeem Stewart's still out there. Are you willing to flip him? Because right now, he's not coming here. Are you willing to flip him? All intents and purposes, from people who have run out there and put in crystal balls and all these different things, they don't think he's coming here. With 24 hours left to go, what are you willing to do? Let me tell you what I would be willing to do. Whatever it took. Whatever it took. Because reality or perception that's out there on the streets about where you are as a program starts becoming reality if you continue to allow these things to happen. So, I don't really know what else to say here. I don't. I'm kind of at now I'm kind of at a loss for words. I really am. There are going to be guys that hit the portal. You know, Ahmad Hardy, the running back from ULM, I think is going to be hitting the portal soon. Maybe he already has while you're watching this. I don't know. I'd go get him. I would go get everybody that I knew that could be a difference maker here. All right. I appreciate all of our friends over at Service Hawk Digital Media. I greatly appreciate our friends over at C&D Plumbing. Give them a call. I know you guys got plumbing issues. Again, that number is 985-304-8556. Until then, we'll see you guys tonight. Y'all have a good night or good day. Peace out, Girl Scouts.